Today, I'll show you how to whip up these adorable drawstring bunny bags. These make the perfect little gift for any child that you may know, and I'll show you how to whip them up next. Now I got this idea off of Pinterest, and it came from a blog called Judith Just Jude, and I thought they were so cute, I decided to take you along on my journey in making one. So the things that you're going to need to make this cute little bag are, you're going to need 2 pieces of fabric measuring 6 inches wide by 8 inches tall. And for this front one, I fussy cut it just so it would say Happy Easter here. But on this back piece, I really didn't care. You're also going to need 2 pieces of lining fabric that also measure 6 inches wide by 8 inches tall. You're going to need 4 pieces of fabric measuring 2.5 inches wide by 4.5 inches tall, and these are for the ears. Now I'm going to use the same fabric, but if you want to, you could do the back of the ears different from the front. You're also going to need some Pellon here. This is just lightweight, and it measures 2.5 inches by 9 inches. You're going to need some ribbon for the drawstrings, and this is 1/2 inch wide ribbon, and you're going to need 2 pieces that measure 17 inches long. You're also going to need an ear template. I'll go ahead and leave a link to the blog where I got this template from in the description box down below. You're going to need your iron and ironing board, and also your sewing machine. And today I'll be using black thread. So let's get started. So the very first thing that I did was download the template here, and I glued it to a little piece of cardboard that I got from a cereal box. Next, you want to take your piece of Pellon and 2 of your ear fabric pieces, and we're just going to iron this onto the Pellon. Using your manufacturer's instructions, I like to use a pressing cloth, and you want to make sure that the glue side, it faces the wrong side of the fabric. Now it should look something like this. I just went ahead and cut them apart here. The next thing we're going to do is flip these over and trace our ear pattern on it. Now you just want to grab your other 2 pieces of ear fabric here, and we're going to lay these so that the pretty sides are touching for both ears. Now you just want to take a pin here, and we're going to pin right in the middle of the ear to hold both layers together. And now I'm just going to take this over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew directly onto my pencil mark here, and I'm going to leave the bottom open for turning. You want to do that to both ears. Alright guys, so I sewed around each of my ears here on the pencil line. I left the bottom open here, and you want to backstitch at the beginning and the end. Now I'm just going to remove my pins here. Grab my pinking shears, and I'm going to cut out these ears, leaving about an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Just like that, and you want to do that to both ears. Now we're just going to turn our ears right side out, and to do that, I'm going to use my bone folder here. You could use a pen or a chopstick. You're going to open up your ear here, spread the layers apart, kind of tuck in the tip here, then I'm just going to put it on my bone folder and push it through. Just like that. Now I'll show you to do it one more time. I'm going to separate the fabric here. Kind of push in the point so it looks like that. Stick it on the tip of my bone folder and push. Now you just want to take these over to your ironing board and give them a good press. Alright, now the next step you're going to do is we're going to tuck in our opening here. And this part can be a little bit tricky, so what I like to do is I'll fold in one side first. Like that, and give it a press. Now go ahead and fold in the other side. And give that a press also. Alright guys, now that we have our little bottom end all tucked in, now you just want to take this over to your sewing machine, and we're going to sew as close as we can to the bottom here and stitch that opening closed. Now you just want to set your ears off to the side for a minute. Now you just want to grab your two outside pieces of fabric, and we're going to lay these pretty sides touching. Now you just want to grab a ruler, and we're going to measure down from the top here 2 inches on either side and make a mark. Just like that. I don't know how well you can see it on camera here. So now we're going to take this over to our sewing machine, and with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, starting at this mark, we're going to sew down across the bottom and back up, stopping at the other 2 inch mark, backstitching at the beginning and the end. Alright guys, and it should look something like this, and you'll have these 2 flaps here. Now we're going to grab our lining pieces. We're going to lay them pretty sides touching. And we're going to do the same thing and measure down 2 inches on either side and make a mark. Now this time at the bottom here, we're going to leave a 2 inch opening for turning purposes. So I'm just going to use my grid here. And I know to leave this part open. I'm going to go ahead and stick a couple pins in there. Now this time when we take it back to our sewing machine, we're going to sew with that same 1/4 inch seam allowance, backstitching at the beginning and the end. And I'm going to sew down this side, turn the corner, and stop. Make sure to backstitch. Then I'm going to move over to this pin, backstitch, sew, turn the corner, and stop right here. And you guessed it, backstitch. Alright guys, now that we have our outer fabric all sewed up here, and our lining fabric all sewed up with our opening, we're going to box pleat these corners. So to do that, you just want to open up your bag here, and you're going to line up this seam with the bottom seam. Just like this, and it should form a triangle. Now with a ruler here, I'm going to measure up 1 inch from the point, draw a line, I also like to put a pin there, just so nothing moves when I'm sewing it. And we're going to take this back over to our sewing machine, and we're going to sew right on our pencil mark here. You want to do that to all 4 corners. Alright guys, so I have all 4 of my corners here boxed up. Now I'm just going to grab my pinking shears, and I'm going to trim off these little ears. Now, not to sound like a broken record, but don't forget to backstitch at the beginning and the end. Now we're going to join the lining and the front together. And to do that, we're going to match up these flaps here. So I just like to start at one side at a time. I'm going to match up my corner here. And you want this seam line to match up with this seam line and put a pin. Now the same thing on the other side. Alright guys, so I have one side pinned together, and now you want to do the same thing to the other flap. So basically, right where this back stitch is, you want to line that up on both sides. That's where I'm putting my pin. So now it should look like this. Here are my two flaps here. Here's the lining, and here's the outside of the bag. Now starting with one flap at a time, we're going to start right here where our seam stopped. You want to back stitch, and we're going to sew with that 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around until we get to this other seam and stop and back stitch. When you're done with that, you want to do the same thing to the other flap, starting right here and sew all the way around, stopping over here. Alright guys, so I'm over here at my sewing machine. I'm going to be sewing up one flap first. The rest of the bag is all flattened off towards the back here. I'm going to be starting right where the back stitch is when we sewed our layers together. And with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm going to start sewing. When I get a 1/4 inch away from the corner here, I'm going to stop my needle down, raise my presser foot and spin, and continue to sew. Now I reach the other corner, the same thing, needle down, lift presser foot, and spin. Now this time when I come up here, I'm going to stop and backstitch right where this seam right here begins. Just like that. Now that flap is sewed together. Now I'm just going to flip this over and do the same thing for the second flap. Alright guys, so it should look like that. And form a little T here. So the next thing that you're going to do is through our opening in the lining, we're going to turn this bag right side out. Now, just using my bone folder here, I'm going to poke out all the corners in the flap and in the bottom of the bag. Now you just want to close your opening in the lining here, and you could hand stitch it, but since it's the inside of the bag, I'm just going to take it over to my sewing machine and sew right across here, back stitching at the beginning and the end. Just like that. Now if you are using your machine and you wanted to match your color here to make it less noticeable, feel free to do so, but I don't think a kid will even notice. So now you just want to tuck in your lining into the bottom of the bag, poke out your corners here, just like that. Now give it a good press. Now we're going to make the casings for our ribbon. So you want to find the front of your bag here. Mine has the Easter egg hunt and Happy Easter here. We're going to take this flap and we're going to fold it down until we hit the corner here. Like that. And give it a press. Just like that. Now we're going to take this over to our sewing machine. And starting right here, back stitching, we're going to sew as close as we can to the bottom of the flap here, all the way across, and back stitch. Just like that. Now you can see we have not sewed our back flap yet. And this little pocket will make our casing for our ribbon. So now we're going to do the same thing to our back flap. The only thing different is we're going to put our ears on also. So I'm going to fold this down just like before and give it a press. Just like that. And just so this front flap doesn't get in my way, I'm going to go ahead and pin it back. Now you just want to grab your ears. Alright guys, so I just went ahead and eyeballed these. You want to make sure you have an inch in between your ears. And you want to make sure that the bottom of the ear lines up with the bottom of the flap. Now pin them. Now we're going to take this back to our sewing machine. And I'm going to start here and sew down this flap. And I'm going to make sure that I kind of hit this stitch line that I already have on my ears. I'm going to sew all the way across and backstitch at the beginning and the end. Alright guys, so I have my ears attached here. And as you can see, I kind of got off a little bit on my lines here. If you're using matching thread, you wouldn't see it as noticeably. But I don't think a kid's even going to care. So next you just want to grab your ribbon. You're also going to want a safety pin. And I'm going to stick it at one end of my ribbon. And I went ahead and pinked my edges here just to keep them from fraying real bad. So starting here in the front, I'm going to run my ribbon through the casing. And now I'm going to flip it over and run it through the back casing. Just like that. Now you can take out your safety pin and tie your ribbon in a knot. You might have to scrunch up your bag like this to get enough to make the knot. Just like that. Now grab your other piece of ribbon and we're going to run it through starting the opposite side of your knot. So it should end up on this side. And just thread it through. And just like before, tie a knot. And now our drawstring bunny bag is complete. The final step to do is stuff it full of goodies. When you stuffed as much as you can in there, go ahead and grab the knots here and pull. Now isn't that just the cutest? I think any child would love to get this as a special little gift on Easter. Well, I hope you give this project a try. If you like this video and want to see more of my videos, go down below and hit the big red subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. If you have a question about this video or any of my other videos, or would just like to leave a suggestion for a future upcoming video, leave me a comment. Feel free to share this video across your social medias. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.